The silence that followed Commander Vrel's words felt heavier than any explosion. Everyone on the ground, human and Zalothian alike, waited anxiously for what would come next. Mia Carter stepped out of her damaged shuttle, her legs shaking, but her resolve firm. She approached the alien ship once more, knowing this might be her last chance to prevent disaster. "Please," she said, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her heart. "This wasn't us. Not all of us." Vrel studied her carefully, his glowing eyes narrowing slightly. Behind him, Kale and other members of the crew exchanged uneasy glances. The tension was palpable, like a storm about to break. "You ask for trust," Vrel began, his deep voice resonating through the translator device. "But your actions betray you. How can we believe you when one of your own tries to destroy us?" Mia swallowed hard. She knew he had every reason to doubt humanity, but she also knew giving up wasn't an option. "Because I'm here," she replied firmly. "I risked my life to stop that weapon. Others are working with you right now, proving we can cooperate. Don't let one person's hatred define all of us." For a long moment, Vrel didn't respond. He turned to look at the humans and Zalothians still gathered around the project site. Despite the chaos, they hadn't abandoned their work. Engineers continued testing systems, scientists shared data, and diplomats drafted agreements. It was imperfect, messy even, but it was progress. Finally, Vrel spoke. "Your kind is complicated. You fight yourselves as much as you strive for unity. But perhaps that is why you are worth understanding." His words brought a flicker of hope to Mia's face. "Does that mean you'll give us another chance?" Vrel hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Yes. But know this, if trust is broken again, there will be no second chances." Relief washed over the crowd below. Laura Bennett and Jack Harper exchanged weary smiles, while General Paul Monroe exhaled deeply, feeling the weight of responsibility ease just slightly. For now, war had been avoided. But Kyle Dawson wasn't finished. Watching from a distance, he seethed with anger. To him, Vrel's decision was proof that the aliens were weak, unwilling to retaliate even after being attacked. Determined to finish what he started, he prepared one final assault, a stolen prototype weapon designed to overload alien technology completely. As night fell, Mia confronted Kyle in his hideout, having tracked him down using UNSR resources. "It's over, Kyle," she said, stepping into the dimly lit room. "You've done enough damage." Kyle sneered, clutching the weapon tightly. "You don't get it, do you? They're not here to help us. They're here to take everything. They're scared of us, just like we're scared of them." Maya shot back. "If you fire that thing, you'll destroy everything we've worked for. Is that really what you want?" For a moment, Kyle hesitated. Doubt flickered in his eyes, but then his grip tightened on the weapon, and he raised it toward Mia. Before he could act, however, General Monroe's forces stormed the building, overpowering him and securing the weapon. With Kyle detained, the immediate threat was neutralized. Back at the project site, the joint human-Zilothian team completed their upgrades to Earth's power grid. The success of the project symbolized something greater, a fragile but real bond between two vastly different species. Commander Vrel addressed both groups before departing. "Earth is indeed a hornet's nest," he said, his tone thoughtful. "But within its chaos lies potential for destruction, yes, but also for growth. Perhaps one day we may learn from each other." As the alien ship ascended into the stars, leaving Earth behind, Maya looked up at the sky. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, humanity had taken a step toward something bigger than itself. And somewhere among the stars, Commander Vrel carried with him a newfound respect for the unpredictable, resilient beings who called Earth home. The joint project between humans and Zilothians was progressing faster than anyone had expected. Engineers from both sides worked tirelessly, sharing knowledge and technology in ways that once seemed impossible. Dr. Laura Bennett marveled at how quickly the teams adapted to each other's methods. "It's like we're speaking the same language now," she told Jack Harper as they reviewed the latest updates. The modified power grid system was nearly complete, and early tests showed promising results. But not everyone shared their optimism. Kyle Dawson watched from the shadows, his hatred for the aliens growing stronger with each passing day. To him, the cooperation between humans and Zalothians was a betrayal, a sign of weakness. He couldn't understand why so many people were willing to trust beings who had already shown their superiority through advanced technology. "They're making us dependent on them," he muttered to himself, pacing back and forth in his bunker. "Once they have control over our systems, they'll crush us." Kyle's paranoia consumed him. He believed the only way to protect humanity was to strike one final decisive blow against the alien ship. Using what little resources he had left, he rigged together a prototype weapon capable of disabling alien technology on a massive scale. It was risky and untested, but Kyle didn't care. All that mattered was stopping the aliens before it was too late. Mia Carter sensed something was wrong. She had been monitoring communications across Earth and noticed an unusual spike in encrypted messages originating from remote locations. When she brought her concerns to General Paul Monroe, he immediately ordered a sweep of potential threats. "We can't afford any surprises right now," he said grimly. "Not with everything riding on this project." Despite their efforts, Kyle managed to stay one step ahead. Under cover of darkness, he loaded his weapon onto a stolen transport vehicle and headed toward a secluded launch site. His plan was simple: fire the weapon directly at the alien mothership and disable its core systems. If successful, it would cripple the aliens' ability to retaliate, or so he believed. Back at the project site, Commander Vrel observed the humans with cautious approval. Their determination impressed him, though doubt still lingered in his mind. "They are unpredictable," he admitted to Kale during a private conversation. "But perhaps that is not entirely a flaw." Kale nodded slowly. "Their capacity for change is unusual. Perhaps there is hope for them after all." As dawn broke over the horizon, Mia joined Laura and Jack to oversee the final stages of the power grid upgrade. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful. Everyone knew this moment could define the future of human-Zalothian relations. Then, without warning, alarms blared. A rogue missile streaked across the sky, heading straight for the alien ship. Panic erupted among the workers below as the projectile closed in. Commander Vrel's voice crackled over the communication system. "What is this?" Mia's heart sank. She recognized the trajectory. It wasn't coming from any government facility. "It's Kyle," she whispered, dread filling her chest. "He's done it again." General Monroe barked orders into his communicator, scrambling jets to intercept the missile. But time was running out. The weapon was moving too fast, and the alien ship had no shields raised. In a desperate attempt to stop the attack, Mia grabbed a nearby shuttle and took off. She raced toward the missile, hoping to disable it before impact. Her hands trembled on the controls, but she forced herself to focus. This was humanity's last chance to prove it wanted peace. As she approached the missile, she activated the shuttle's grappling system. Sparks flew as the two objects collided, and for a moment, it looked like Maya might succeed. But then the weapon detonated, sending a shockwave rippling through the air. When the smoke cleared, the alien ship remained intact, but barely. Its surface shimmered faintly, damaged but still operational. Below, the crowd held its breath, waiting for the aliens' response. Commander Vrel stared at the scene, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he spoke. "This ends now." His words sent a chill through everyone present. Humanity's fate hung by a thread, and whether it snapped or held depended entirely on what happened next. Ethan stood on the barren moon, the fourth artifact glowing faintly in his hands. The wind whipped around him, carrying fine dust that stung his skin, but he barely noticed. His mind was focused on the task ahead. With 4 artifacts now in their possession, the map had become clearer, revealing the locations of the final 3 pieces. Each step brought them closer to completing the device, but also closer to a decision Ethan wasn't sure he was ready to make. Back aboard the freighter, Olivia studied the growing collection of artifacts. According to the data, she said, her voice steady but tinged with awe, the device isn't just a tool for reshaping reality. It's a choice, a moment where the user decides what kind of future they want to create. A choice? Ethan asked, frowning. What does that mean? It means you'll have to decide. Olivia explained. The device can enforce peace, unite civilizations, or even rewrite history. But it can also destroy entire worlds if used selfishly. Whatever happens will depend entirely on you. Ethan sank into a nearby seat, the weight of her words sinking in. Why me? Why is this my responsibility? Olivia hesitated before answering. Because the artifacts chose you. I don't know why, and I don't think anyone else does either. But you're the key bearer, Ethan. Whether you like it or not, this is your role. Days turned into weeks as they hunted for the remaining artifacts. Along the way, they faced ambushes, mechanical failures, and moments of doubt. Yet through it all, Ethan grew more determined. He began to see himself not as a victim of circumstance, but as someone capable of making a difference, not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. Finally, after recovering the 7th and final artifact, they traveled to a desolate asteroid field far from prying eyes. There, under the dim light of distant stars, Ethan assembled the pieces. The artifacts fused together seamlessly, forming a single intricate device that pulsed with an otherworldly energy. As Ethan activated it, a vision unfolded before him, a glimpse of 2 possible futures. In one, the galaxy thrived in harmony, its diverse species working together toward a common goal. In the other, endless conflict consumed everything, leaving only ruin behind. The choice was his alone: enforce unity or destroy the device to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. For a long time, Ethan stared at the device, his thoughts racing. He thought about the aliens who had chased him, the sacrifices made along the way, and the countless lives depending on his decision. Finally, he spoke. True peace can't be forced, he said quietly. It has to come from understanding, not control. With that, he triggered the device's self-destruct mechanism. A blinding flash filled the asteroid field, and then silence. The artifacts were gone, their power erased forever. When Ethan returned to Earth, life slowly returned to normal, or as normal as it could be after such an ordeal. He still worked on ships, but now he carried a quiet confidence, knowing he had done the right thing. The aliens retreated, realizing their struggles were insignificant compared to the greater challenges facing the galaxy. Ethan never sought recognition for his actions. To him, the real victory wasn't in wielding power, it was in choosing to let go. And in doing so, he had given the galaxy a chance to find his own path forward. Ethan's hands trembled as he secured the 3rd artifact in a containment unit aboard the freighter. The vision he had experienced still lingered in his mind. Images of destruction and renewal that felt both distant and immediate. He couldn't shake the feeling that the artifacts weren't just tools. They were alive, aware of him in some way. And whatever they wanted from him, it wasn't going to be easy. Olivia noticed his unease but didn't press him for details. Instead, she focused on recalibrating the ship's sensors to avoid detection by alien patrols. They were deep in hostile territory now, surrounded by nebulae that masked their presence, but also made navigation perilous. Every jump into hyperspace carried the risk of running into enemy ships or getting lost in the chaotic energy fields. "We're close," Olivia said finally, breaking the silence. "The map shows 4 more artifacts, each one farther away than the last. If we keep moving at this pace, we might actually stand a chance." Ethan nodded, though his thoughts were elsewhere. The weight of what lay ahead pressed down on him. With every artifact they collected, the stakes grew higher. The aliens weren't giving up. They were organizing, pooling resources, and setting traps. Sooner or later, Ethan knew they'd walk straight into one. As if on cue, the ship's alarms blared to life. A massive cruiser emerged from the nebulous haze, its sleek design marking it as Valeth. Before either Ethan or Olivia could react, smaller fighter ships peeled off from the mothership, surrounding them like predators circling prey. "Shields are holding. For now," Olivia reported, her fingers flying over the controls. "But we can't outrun them. Not here." Ethan clenched his jaw, frustration bubbling inside him. "What about the EMP trick? Can we use it again?" "It'll fry our systems too," Olivia replied grimly. "We'd be dead in the water." Time seemed to slow as Ethan weighed their options. Then an idea struck him, one born out of desperation. "The artifacts," he said suddenly. "They reacted to me before. Maybe they can do it again." Olivia stared at him, unsure. "You don't even know how they work. What if you trigger something worse?" "I don't have a better plan," Ethan shot back. Without waiting for her approval, he grabbed the first two artifacts and placed them side by side near the ship's central console. As soon as he touched them, their surfaces began to glow brighter, pulsing in sync with each other. The ship shuddered violently as a wave of energy radiated outward, disrupting the fighter's systems and forcing them to retreat. The Valeth cruiser hesitated, its weapons faltering as the artifact's power surged through the area. For a brief moment, the battlefield fell silent. "Now," Ethan shouted. Olivia wasted no time, plotting a course through the chaos and activating the hyperdrive. The freighter lurched forward, narrowly avoiding a barrage of incoming fire as they escaped into the safety of hyperspace. When they finally emerged on the other side, both Ethan and Olivia slumped in their seats, exhausted but alive. The artifacts dimmed, returning to their dormant state, but Ethan could still feel their presence, a quiet hum beneath his skin, as if reminding him of their potential. "We can't keep doing this," Olivia said after a long pause. "Every time we use them, it feels like we're playing with fire. One wrong move, and we could destroy everything, including ourselves." Ethan nodded, his expression grim. "I know, but we don't have a choice. If we don't finish this, someone else will, and I don't think they'll care about the consequences." For the rest of the journey, neither of them spoke much. Ethan spent hours staring at the artifacts, trying to understand the visions they had shown him. Olivia worked tirelessly to repair the damage done to the ship during the fight, knowing they couldn't afford another close call. Eventually, they reached the coordinates for the fourth artifact, hidden on a barren moon orbiting a dying star. As they landed, Ethan felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. Whatever challenges awaited them next, he was ready, or at least as ready as he could be. Ethan and Olivia spent the next few days planning their next move. The outpost was quiet, its only occupants being a reclusive mechanic named Ryan Keller and his small team of rogue engineers. They had set up shop in the middle of nowhere, far from the prying eyes of governments and alien factions. When Ethan and Olivia stumbled into their station, Ryan took one look at the artifacts and knew they were trouble. "What are those things?" Ryan asked, eyeing the glowing spheres warily. "And why do you two look like you've been chased halfway across the galaxy?" "It's a long story," Ethan said, glancing at Olivia. "But let's just say these artifacts are important to a lot of people. People who want to use them for bad reasons." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Sounds dangerous. Why bring that kind of heat here?" "We didn't have much of a choice," Olivia admitted. "Our ship got trashed, and we needed somewhere to regroup. If you don't want us here, we'll leave." Ryan studied them for a moment, then sighed. "Look, I'm not exactly a fan of risking my neck for strangers, but I hate the idea of some power-hungry empire getting their hands on tech like this even more. Tell me what you need, and maybe we can help." With Ryan's expertise, they began repairing the escape pods and outfitting them with better shields and faster engines. Ryan also gave Ethan and Olivia access to his personal database, which contained information about uncharted routes and hidden bases scattered throughout the galaxy. It wasn't much, but it was enough to give them a fighting chance. As they worked, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The aliens would recover from the EMP blast sooner or later, and when they did, they'd come after him with everything they had. He needed to stay ahead of them, and that meant finding the remaining artifacts before anyone else could. Using the map embedded in the second artifact, Olivia pinpointed the location of the third piece. It was deep inside a volatile nebula filled with radiation storms and unpredictable gravitational pulls. Navigating through it would be nearly impossible, but Ethan didn't see any other option. "We'll have to take the risk," he said firmly. "If we wait too long, someone else will get there first." Ryan nodded in agreement. "If you're going into that mess, you'll need more than just patched-up pods. Take one of my freighters. It's old, but it's tough enough to handle rough conditions." The freighter was far from glamorous. Its hull scarred from years of smuggling runs and desperate escapes. But it was reliable, and Ryan's crew had loaded it with supplies and weapons just in case. Ethan thanked Ryan for his help, though he knew accepting it came with risks. If the aliens traced them back to the outpost, Ryan and his team would be in danger too. Before leaving, Ryan pulled Ethan aside. "Listen, kid," he said, his tone serious. "You've got guts, I'll give you that. But remember, no matter how powerful those artifacts are, they won't solve everything. Sometimes the hardest choices don't involve fancy tech. They involve trusting yourself and the people around you." Ethan nodded, taking the advice to heart. As the freighter launched into space, he glanced at Olivia, who was already busy plotting their course. For the first time since this ordeal began, he felt like he had a real shot at seeing it through, not because of luck or fate, but because he had allies who believed in him. The journey to the nebula was treacherous, with violent energy storms threatening to tear the ship apart at every turn. But Ethan kept his focus, guiding the freighter through the chaos, while Olivia monitored the artifact's readings. Slowly but surely, they closed in on their target. When they finally reached the coordinates, they found the third artifact floating in the center of a massive cloud of glowing gas. It pulsed faintly, as if waiting for them. Ethan stepped outside in a makeshift spacesuit, reaching out to grab it. As his fingers brushed against its surface, a surge of energy coursed through him, stronger than ever before. For a brief moment, he saw flashes of something, a vision of galaxies colliding, stars dying, and worlds rising anew. Then it was gone, leaving him breathless and shaken. Whatever the artifacts truly were, they held secrets beyond anything he could imagine. Back aboard the freighter, Olivia noticed the change in him immediately. "Are you okay?" she asked, concern in her voice. Ethan nodded, though his mind was racing. "Yeah, I'm fine, but I think we're running out of time." Ethan's hands trembled as he clutched the second artifact, its faint glow reflecting off the walls of the scout ship. Outside, the alien cruisers closed in, their weapons trained on the tiny vessel. The Valeth, Lumen, and Kelthar ships formed a tight perimeter, each faction vying for control. Ethan glanced at Olivia, who was frantically working at the console, trying to find a way out. "We're trapped," she said, her voice tense. "Their scanners are locked onto us. Even if we try to jump to hyperspace, they'll shoot us down before we can escape." Ethan swallowed hard, his mind racing. He couldn't let them take the artifacts, or him. Not after everything they'd been through. "Is there anything we can do? Any trick up your sleeve?" Olivia hesitated, then nodded. "There's one option, but it's risky. If I overload the ship's energy core, it'll create an electromagnetic pulse strong enough to disable their systems temporarily. It'll give us a window to slip away, but it'll also cripple our ship. We'll have to abandon it and hope we can reach a nearby station before running out of air." Ethan didn't hesitate. "Do it." While Olivia worked on rigging the energy core, Ethan prepared the emergency pod. He secured both artifacts inside, making sure they wouldn't be damaged during the escape. The tension in the cockpit was unbearable as the alien ships grew closer, their hails crackling over the comm system. Surrender now. Ethan and Olivia's escape from the derelict station gave them a brief moment of relief, but it didn't last long. The small scout ship they had stolen was barely holding together, its systems groaning under the strain of hyperspace travel. Ethan sat in the pilot's seat, his injured shoulder throbbing with every movement. Despite the pain, he kept his focus on navigating through the endless void of space, trying to put as much distance as possible between them and their pursuers. Olivia worked tirelessly at a console nearby, analyzing the data they had gathered from the artifact before being forced to flee. Her brow furrowed in concentration as she sifted through fragments of alien text and diagrams. "There's more to this than I thought," she murmured, her voice tinged with both excitement and concern. "The artifact isn't just a key. It's also a map." "A map?" Ethan asked, glancing over his shoulder. "A map to what?" "To the other artifacts," Olivia replied, pointing to a series of symbols glowing faintly on the screen. "Each one is connected, forming a network. If we can find the others, we might be able to piece together the full device." Ethan frowned. "And then what? You said yourself that thing has the power to reshape reality. What happens if someone uses it for the wrong reasons?" Olivia hesitated, her expression darkening. "That's why we need to stay ahead of the aliens. If any one faction gets all 7 pieces, they could use the device to dominate the galaxy, or worse." The weight of responsibility pressed down on Ethan, heavier than ever before. He wasn't a hero or a scientist. He was just a mechanic who happened to stumble into something far beyond his understanding. Yet here he was, carrying the fate of countless worlds in his hands. "What do you expect me to do?" he asked, his voice tinged with frustration. "I'm not some chosen savior." "No one expects you to be perfect," Olivia said gently. "But you've already proven you can handle this. The artifact responds to you, Ethan. That means you're part of this, whether you like it or not." Her words offered little comfort, but Ethan knew she was right. He couldn't walk away. Not now. Taking a deep breath, he turned his attention back to the controls. "Where do we go next?" Olivia studied the map carefully. "The closest artifact is hidden in an asteroid field near the edge of known space. It's dangerous territory, filled with debris and radiation storms. But if we move quickly, we might be able to retrieve it before the aliens catch up." As they approached the asteroid field, the ship's sensors picked up signs of activity. Dozens of ships, both alien and human, were scattered throughout the area, searching for something. Ethan clenched the controls tightly, realizing they weren't the only ones after the artifact. "Looks like we're not alone," he muttered. Ethan and Olivia spent hours poring over the artifact, their heads bent close together as they deciphered its secrets. The patterns on its surface shifted subtly under their touch, responding to their efforts like a living thing. With each new discovery, Ethan felt a mix of awe and dread. The artifact wasn't just a relic. It was a key, a piece of something far greater than he could have imagined. And as much as he wanted to trust Olivia, a small part of him still wondered if she had her own reasons for helping him. Their work was interrupted by the sound of distant explosions. The station shuddered violently, throwing both of them off balance. Ethan scrambled to his feet, clutching the artifact tightly. "What was that?" he asked, his voice tense. Olivia's face turned pale. "They found us." Before either of them could react, the observation deck's doors burst open. A squad of Vailith warriors stormed in, their elongated limbs moving with terrifying speed. Behind them came the glowing forms of the Lumen, their bioluminescent bodies casting an eerie light across the room. Both groups ignored each other, their focus entirely on Ethan and the artifact. "Hand it over," Commander Zarn barked, his mechanical translator crackling. "You cannot comprehend the stakes." "No," shouted the Lumen leader, floating forward. "The keybearer belongs with us. Only we can ensure peace." Ethan backed away, his heart pounding. He glanced at Olivia, who looked just as frightened as he felt. "Any ideas?" he whispered. Olivia nodded toward a nearby maintenance hatch. That leads to the lower levels. If we can get there, we might be able to escape through the docking bay." Without hesitation, Ethan grabbed her hand, and they bolted for the hatch. The aliens opened fire, energy blasts searing the air around them. One shot grazed Ethan's shoulder, but he gritted his teeth and kept moving. They slipped into the hatch and sealed it behind them, plunging into the darkness of the station's inner workings. The narrow tunnels were a maze, twisting and turning in ways that made it hard to keep track of where they were going. Ethan led the way, using his knowledge of ship layouts to navigate. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew louder. The aliens weren't giving up. "This isn't going to work," Olivia panted, struggling to keep up. "We need another plan." Ethan stopped suddenly, an idea forming in his mind. "Give me a minute," he said, pulling out his toolkit. He quickly rigged a makeshift trap using spare parts scattered along the tunnel, a tripwire connected to a power conduit. When triggered, it would cause a localized overload, creating enough chaos to buy them time. As soon as the trap was set, they continued running. Moments later, a loud bang echoed through the tunnels, followed by shouts of confusion from the pursuing aliens. The explosion wasn't strong enough to cause real damage, but it was enough to slow them down. Reaching the docking bay, Ethan spotted a small scout ship parked nearby. It wasn't much, but it was their only chance. He helped Olivia climb aboard before jumping into the pilot's seat. His hands flew over the controls, coaxing the old engines to life. The ship groaned in protest, but finally lifted off just as the aliens arrived in the bay. Energy blasts streaked past them as they shot out into space. Ethan didn't look back. He focused on flying, pushing the ship to its limits as they fled the dying station. Once they were safely away, he let out a shaky breath. "We did it," Olivia said softly, sinking into her seat. "For now, at least." But Ethan knew better. This victory was temporary. The aliens would regroup, and next time, they might not be so lucky. Still, for the first time since this ordeal began, he felt a spark of determination. Whatever the artifact was, and whatever role he played in its story, he wasn't going to let anyone use it for destruction. Ethan's shuttle drifted silently through the vast expanse of space, its systems running on borrowed time. The artifact sat securely in his lap, its surface now calm and unassuming after the burst of energy that had saved him from the bounty hunters. Ethan stared at it, his mind racing with questions. What was it? Why did it respond to him? And most importantly, why were so many powerful beings willing to kill or betray their own kind? To get it. He didn't have answers, but he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't keep running blindly. He needed help, someone who could make sense of the artifact, and maybe even guide him through the chaos surrounding it. But who could he trust? Every person he'd met so far seemed to have an agenda, and every alien faction viewed him as nothing more than a pawn in their games. As if on cue, the comm system crackled to life. At first, Ethan thought it was another transmission from the aliens or bounty hunters tracking him, but instead, a calm, human voice came through. "Ethan Cole, this is Dr. Olivia Grant. I've been trying to reach you." Ethan froze. How did she know his name? And how had she found him out here in the middle of nowhere? Hesitant, he replied, "Who are you, and what do you want?" "I'm a linguist," Olivia explained. "I specialize in ancient languages and artifacts from alien civilizations. I intercepted some data about the object you're carrying, the artifact. If you let me, I can help you understand it." Ethan wasn't convinced. "Why should I trust you? Everyone else I've met either wants to use me or sell me out." Olivia sighed, her tone softening. "I know how this must sound, but I'm not like them. I've spent years studying objects like yours, and I believe it's tied to something much bigger than any of us. Please, Ethan, you don't have to face this alone." Her words struck a chord with him. Despite his instincts telling him to stay cautious, he felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, Olivia could give him the answers he desperately needed. After a long pause, he agreed to meet her at a neutral location, A derelict space station orbiting a dying star. It was remote enough to avoid detection by the alien factions, yet functional enough for a brief rendezvous. When Ethan arrived, the station was eerily quiet, its corridors dark and littered with debris. He found Olivia waiting in what used to be the main observation deck. She was younger than he expected, with sharp features and an air of determination. Her eyes lit up when she saw the artifact in his hands. "I've seen symbols like those before," she said, pointing to the patterns etched into its surface. "They're part of an ancient language linked to a forgotten civilization. From what I can tell, this artifact is one piece of a larger puzzle." "A puzzle?" Ethan asked, frowning. "What kind of puzzle?" Olivia hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Legends speak of 7 artifacts scattered across the galaxy. Together, they form a device capable of reshaping reality itself, changing the course of history, altering entire worlds. That's why everyone's after you, Ethan. Whoever controls the artifacts gains unimaginable power." Ethan shook his head, overwhelmed. "This sounds insane. Why would anyone think I'm the guy to handle something like this? I'm just a mechanic." "You're more than that," Olivia insisted. "The artifact responds to you, doesn't it? That's no accident. There's something special about you, something we don't fully understand yet. But I promise, I'll do everything I can to help you figure it out." For the first time since this nightmare began, Ethan allowed himself to feel a flicker of trust. Olivia seemed genuine, her focus entirely on unraveling the mystery rather than exploiting it. As they worked together to decode fragments of the artifact's data, Ethan realized he wasn't completely alone anymore. Whatever lay ahead, he wouldn't have to face it by himself. At least, not entirely. Ethan's shuttle limped through the emptiness of space, its engine sputtering like a wounded animal. The betrayal by Mia Torres still burned in his mind, but he didn't have time to dwell on it. Every moment he spent idle was another moment the alien factions had to catch up. He glanced at the artifact again, now resting securely in a compartment beside him. It seemed harmless enough, just a smooth metallic sphere with shifting patterns on its surface. Yet, for reasons he couldn't understand, it had turned his life upside down. The ship's navigation system beeped, alerting him that he was approaching a small remote mining colony orbiting a distant asteroid belt. It wasn't much, a cluster of battered structures clinging to the rocky surface, but it would provide temporary shelter. Ethan knew he couldn't stay long, but he needed supplies and a chance to regroup. As he landed, he kept an eye out for any signs of danger. The last thing he wanted was to walk into another ambush. The colony was eerily quiet. Most of the miners were either asleep or off-duty, leaving the corridors deserted. Ethan moved cautiously, keeping his head low as he scavenged what he could. Fuel cells, food rations, and a spare toolkit. Just as he was about to leave, he heard voices echoing down the hallway. Ducking behind a stack of crates, he listened carefully. "Heard he came this way," one voice said. It belonged to a Valith, their insectoid frames unmistakable even in the dim light. "The commander wants him alive." "And what about the others?" Another voice asked, deeper and more guttural. This time, it was a Kelfar warrior, his armored form towering over the Valith. "If we find him first, you'll get nothing." The two aliens glared at each other, their animosity palpable. Ethan held his breath, praying they wouldn't notice him. But fate had other plans. One of the crates shifted slightly under his weight, making a soft scraping sound. Both aliens turned toward the noise, weapons drawn. Ethan didn't wait. He bolted from his hiding spot, sprinting down the corridor, as energy blasts lit up the air around him. His heart pounded as he ducked into a maintenance tunnel, sealing the hatch behind him. The narrow passage was dark and cramped, but it gave him a chance to think. He couldn't keep running forever. Sooner or later, the aliens would corner him, or worse, team up against him. As he crawled through the tunnel, Ethan's hand brushed against the artifact. For the first time, he felt something strange, a faint vibration, almost like the sphere was responding to his touch. He pulled it out and examined it closely. The shifting patterns on its surface seemed to glow brighter, forming shapes that looked vaguely like symbols. Was it trying to communicate with him, or was he imagining things? Suddenly, an idea struck him. If the artifact was so important to the aliens, maybe it held some kind of defense mechanism he could use. Desperate, Ethan began tinkering with it, using tools from his kit to probe its surface. To his surprise, one of the panels clicked open, revealing a small interface inside. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, complex yet strangely intuitive, as if it had been designed specifically for him. Before he could explore further, the hatch behind him burst open. A group of bounty hunters poured in, their weapons trained on him. They weren't aliens but humans, hired guns working for someone else. Their leader stepped forward, a wiry man with cold eyes and a scar across his cheek. "Hand it over," he demanded, holding out his hand. "We're not here to hurt you. Just give us the artifact, and we'll let you walk away." Ethan hesitated. He didn't believe them for a second. But instead of arguing, he pressed a button on the artifact's interface. Instantly, a pulse of energy shot out, disabling the bounty hunter's weapons and sending them scrambling backward. Seizing the opportunity, Ethan pushed past them and ran back toward his shuttle. By the time he reached it, the artifact's glow had faded, returning to its dormant state. Ethan didn't know how it worked or why it responded to him, but he didn't care. All that mattered was survival. As he launched the shuttle into space once again, he vowed to uncover its secrets and to stay one step ahead of those who sought to control him. Ethan's stolen shuttle wasn't built for long journeys. It was a small, outdated craft meant for short trips between space stations, and it groaned under the stress of escaping the alien cruisers that were now in hot pursuit. The ship's warning lights flashed as its engines overheated, but Ethan didn't have time to worry about maintenance. All he could think about was putting as much distance as possible between himself and the 3 alien factions chasing him. He glanced at the artifact again, sitting silently on the co-pilot's seat. Its surface shimmered faintly, almost like it was alive. "What are you?" Ethan muttered under his breath, half expecting an answer. But the sphere remained still, offering no clues about why it was so important, or why everyone wanted it so badly. Just as Ethan thought he might lose his pursuers, his sensors picked up another ship approaching fast. This one was smaller and less intimidating than the alien cruisers, but it moved with precision, weaving through asteroids and debris fields like it belonged there. A voice crackled over the comm system. "Hey, buddy, I don't know what kind of trouble you're in, but you're heading straight into my territory. Turn around, or I'll blast you out of the sky." Ethan hesitated. He didn't have many options. The alien ships were closing in, and his own shuttle was on the verge of breaking down. Swallowing his pride, he responded, "Look, I'm not looking for trouble. I just need a place to hide for a bit. Can you help me?" There was a pause before the voice replied, dripping with sarcasm. "Hide? From who?" "Let me guess. Those fancy bugs, glowing fish, and angry lizards chasing you." "How do you know about them?" Ethan asked, surprised. "Because they've been sniffing around here for weeks." The voice shot back. "Listen, I'm not running a charity, but if you've got something valuable, maybe we can work something out." The other ship, a sleek, patched-up freighter with mismatched parts, moved closer and opened its cargo bay doors. Ethan didn't trust this stranger, but he had no choice. With the alien ships gaining ground, he piloted his shuttle inside and sealed the hatch behind him. When Ethan stepped out of his shuttle, he was greeted by a woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper attitude. She introduced herself as Mia Torres, a smuggler who specialized in moving goods and people through uncharted sectors of space. Her dark hair was tied back in a loose braid, and her leather jacket was scuffed from years of wear. "So," she said, crossing her arms, "what's so special about you that 3 alien species are willing to tear each other apart to get their hands on you?" Ethan held up the artifact. "I don't know. They seem to think this thing is important." Mia raised an eyebrow. That's some fancy tech. Mind if I take a look? Reluctantly, Ethan handed it over. Maya turned it over in her hands, studying the shifting patterns on its surface. After a moment, she handed it back. Whatever it is, it's way above my pay grade. But here's the deal. I can keep you safe, for a price. You either pay me now, or you owe me later. Ethan frowned. And if I say no? Mia smirked. Then good luck surviving out there. Those aliens aren't going to stop until they find you. Knowing he couldn't argue, Ethan agreed to her terms. For the next few hours, Mia helped him repair his shuttle while teaching him basic tricks for navigating hyperspace jumps. She also warned him not to trust anyone, not even her. Out here, she said, everyone's got an angle. Keep your wits about you, or you'll end up dead. As they worked, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that Mia knew more than she was letting on. When he asked her about the artifact, she shrugged it off. All I care about is getting paid. Whatever secrets that thing holds, they're yours to figure out. But as the repairs neared completion, Ethan noticed Mia slipping away to make a private call. Suspicious, he followed her and overheard her talking to someone on the comms. Yeah, I've got him. Don't worry. I'll deliver him to you soon. Just make sure you hold up your end of the deal. Ethan's heart sank. She was betraying him. To whom? He didn't know. But it didn't matter. He had to get out of there before she turned him over to whoever she was working with. Without hesitation, he climbed back into his shuttle and fired up the engines. Maya ran onto the deck, shouting after him. But Ethan was already gone, disappearing into the vastness of space once again. Ethan Cole was not the kind of person you'd expect to be at the center of an interstellar conflict. He was a simple man, born and raised in Chicago, with calloused hands from years of fixing engines and cargo ships that traveled between Earth and its colonies. His life was predictable. Long hours in the shipyards, greasy tools, and the occasional drink at a local bar after work. But all of that changed on a seemingly ordinary day. It started when Ethan was assigned to do routine maintenance on one of the massive cargo haulers docked at the orbital station above Earth. The ship had just returned from a long voyage carrying supplies for a mining colony near Mars. As he crawled through the narrow access tunnels inside the ship's hull, checking for wear and tear, something unusual caught his eye. Wedged deep into a crevice where no human or machine should have been able to reach it was a strange object. It looked like nothing Ethan had ever seen before, a smooth metallic sphere etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift slightly when he tilted it under the light. Curious but cautious, Ethan decided to take the object back to his workshop for closer inspection. Little did he know, this decision would put him squarely in the crosshairs of forces far beyond his understanding. By the time he managed to pry the sphere loose and slip it into his toolkit, alarms began blaring throughout the station. At first, Ethan thought someone must have noticed him tampering with restricted areas of the ship. But then, things got stranger. Through the viewport of the station, Ethan saw 3 alien vessels approaching rapidly. Each craft was distinct, one sleek and angular, another glowing faintly with pulsating lights, and the third covered in jagged armor-like plating. They weren't military ships. They were private cruisers, each marked with symbols indicating different alien factions. Before Ethan could react, representatives from all 3 groups materialized aboard the station using teleportation technology, far beyond anything humans possessed. The first to confront him were tall, insectoid creatures with shimmering exoskeletons and elongated limbs. Their leader, Commander Zarn, spoke in clipped, mechanical tones translated through a device strapped to his chest. "Human," Zarn said, pointing directly at Ethan, "you possess something belonging to us. Hand it over now, and we will reward you greatly." Before Ethan could respond, another group arrived, the Lumen. These aliens were shorter, their translucent bodies radiating soft blue light. Their spokesperson floated slightly off the ground, her voice melodic yet urgent. "Do not listen to them," she warned Ethan. The artifact is vital to our survival. Without it, our world faces annihilation. Just as Ethan thought things couldn't get worse, the third faction, the Kelthar, stormed in. Muscular reptilian warriors clad in heavy armor, they wasted no time issuing threats. "Give us the object, human," growled their leader, baring sharp teeth, "or face the consequences." Panicked, Ethan realized he had two options: stay and try to reason with these terrifying beings, or run and hope he could figure out what was going on later. Trusting his instincts, he grabbed the sphere and bolted toward the nearest exit. With adrenaline pumping, he hacked into the control panel of a small shuttle docked nearby and launched himself into space moments before the aliens could stop him. As the shuttle hurtled away from the station, Ethan glanced at the mysterious artifact sitting on the co-pilot's seat beside him. Whatever it was, it clearly held immense value and danger. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He didn't know why every alien crew seemed desperate to recruit him, but one thing was certain: his quiet, unremarkable existence was over.